Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff Charney, and welcome to Jeff's Dungeon, your one-stop shop for all things health, wellness, and fitness. Or as a friend called it after my abundance versus scarcity mindset video, Jeff's Den. So as the aforementioned was said, in my last video, we talked about the differences between the abundance and the scarcity mindset and strategies to develop more of an abundance mindset. Today, we're going to focus on one of the three attachment styles, the anxious attachment style. So one thing that I've been putting a lot of focus on in my self-improvement journey is into understanding the different attachment styles in relationships with other people, what contributes to how you form those styles, and how to break bad habits that lead to forming insecure attachment qualities. My original plan was to focus on the differences between the three main attachment styles, the secure, anxious, and avoidant, with the secure attachment style being kind of the holy grail, the one you want to have most of your qualities in. Some features of a secure attachment style are that you're honest about your feelings, you trust your partner, you have high self-esteem, and you seek support from the people you trust. So this can include your relationships with anybody, whether it be family, friends, romantic partner, or a boss at work, colleagues. We tend not to fall completely into one attachment style, but we tend to exhibit qualities from all three. So be very careful before pigeonholing yourself or someone else into one category completely. We all exhibit some qualities from all three, but the goal is to shift those qualities that may be anxious or avoidant and work on making them more secure. And my original plan was to make one video that covered all three attachment styles, but there's just way too much information to include all three into one video. So this video will focus primarily on the anxious attachment style. So the idea of attachment theories began in the 1950s with psychiatrist Dr. John Bowlby, who discovered that a child's early relationship with their caregivers set the precedent for how they would connect with others later in life. So if a child is brought up in a warm and nurturing environment, they're more likely to display more secure attachment traits. However, if a child is brought up without having their emotional needs recognized, they may display more insecure attachment traits, such as those found in anxious and avoidant attachments. A person with an anxious attachment style may have trouble trusting other people, have low self-esteem, a fear of abandonment, and they might require frequent reassurance from other people and crave intimacy with others because they may have lacked these qualities from infancy when they struggle to connect with their caregivers. So if as a child you were left in the crib for too long, you cried and didn't have a caretaker that helped you with your innate needs, or later in life when you were able to express your needs, those needs were either shut down or your caregiver believed to be unimportant. So you learn to internalize those needs and fend for yourself. So these are the types of early childhood experiences that may lead to more anxious and avoidant attachment traits. I'm not saying you should blame your caregivers for all your issues and scapegoat them for all your problems. No, instead be thankful for them trying their best and giving you an opportunity to take time to focus on yourself, maybe do some therapy to turn those avoidant and anxious personality traits into secure ones. So even with people that have primarily secure attachment styles, usually have some that are avoidant and anxious. So consider yourself ahead of the curve of your securely attached brethren because you are motivated to work on yourself and they may not be. So you can outgrow those securely attached goody two-shoes. I found a great YouTuber. His name is Aaron Dowdy, and he focuses on self-improvement strategies and ways to live your life in your own frame and not in other people's energy bubbles. And he made a really good point that stuck with me. He said that people are doing the best they can from the level of consciousness they are at. So caregivers want what is best for their children. They're doing the best they can from their own levels of consciousness. And they may not have had the greatest upbringing themselves, so they may be unintentionally passing it along. So now we're going to identify traits and qualities from the anxious attachment style and offer tips for how to convert those insecure attachment qualities into secure traits. So for starters, some of the key traits of a person with an anxious attachment style is low self-esteem, fear of rejection or abandonment, and being clingy in relationships with anybody. This can be because of inconsistent parenting from when they were a child, or from sometimes unresolved issues in their past. They can escalate those qualities. And as I mentioned earlier, you may have had caregivers that were sometimes supportive and responsive to your needs, but other times not as much. This can be especially true with parents that have alcohol problems, other addictions, and other mental health issues. This goes back to the statement of people doing the best they can from the level of consciousness that they're at. But a young child processes this as not knowing about what to expect from their relationship with their caregivers, or what to expect in the future. So in my video on dieting, we talked about how fad diets don't work because you're starving your body of nutrients that it needs. So when you finally cheat and eat a meal outside of your dietary restrictions, your body will often hold on to those calories as fat to build up a store because it doesn't know when you will eat those nutrients again. Well, this is a similar concept with a person that has an anxious attachment style. The child doesn't know when he or she will have their needs met again, so they react insecurely and they hold on to this anxiety. They hold on to their needs, they internalize them. They simply just learn to blame themselves or feel guilty for having these wants and needs. So they don't express them for the fear of being rejected or shamed for having these wants and needs. They hold on to these innate needs and store them as fat. Don't worry, internalizing needs will not make you literally fat. I mean, unless you start binging on a bunch of donuts and ice cream. But anyway, this is what leads to the anxious attachment style with other people. Maybe a slightly loose comparison, but I try my best to make cross-curricular connections, so sorry if I confused you. That's the teacher in me. But this type of child learns to internalize their feelings, wants, and needs, because they're taught from a young age that they do not matter. That not that the child doesn't matter, but that their thoughts and needs might not matter. Those thoughts and needs were viewed as a nuisance to the caregiver. So there are also cases where parents become kind of enmeshed in their child's life in order to satisfy their own needs, or maybe become overprotective to make it seem to the outside as if they're the perfect parent. So many people with anxious attachments fear abandonment, so when they get into relationships, they'll do anything to avoid feeling abandoned. And by relationships, this can go for a friendship, a professional relationship, or a romantic relationship, any type of relationship you have with other people. If it's a boss, you might fear abandonment in the form of being fired or abandoned from your job. One of the issues with a person that has an anxious attachment is that they will meet somebody and project everything they want or need on that person and idealize them, thinking that that person can fulfill every want and need that they did not have when they were infants. So all those needs that were not fulfilled in childhood or somewhere in their past can lead to preoccupation with this person and worrying about what this person thinks of them and dedicating their entire life to making this person happy so that this person can fulfill their needs. And on a subconscious level, this person with the anxious attachment style is being manipulative. They might not realize it. They probably don't realize it. They're probably really good people. But they're usually not being their authentic self because they're so focused on doing what they have to do and being who they think they have to be to keep this other person around in their life, right? Because they fear losing this person, and they're kind of projecting, they're making this story up in their head that when they were young, they were abandoned by their caretaker for having wants and needs, for having their own personality. So it's the same thing in adulthood when you get into relationships with others. They're doing what they think they need to do to keep this person around. So they're subconsciously focused on this outcome of how they want things to end up with this person and not being authentic. So they aren't focusing on the moment and how things actually are. They're doing this not because they're not trying to be manipulative or because they're a bad person, but because they often have this intense fear of abandonment. And they probably are not even aware of what they're doing. And I've been guilty of that in my past without even realizing it. So instead of taking the time to really get to know this person's flaws and qualities that they meet, they have this predetermined story in their head of what they want this person to be, what they need this person to be, right? Because so they can have all their needs met as an adult. All goes back to infanthood. So they ignore all the red flags that maybe this person isn't exactly who we projected them to be. They project their needs and desires on this person, and expect them to fulfill all those needs that this anxiously attached person has. Right? The person with the anxious attachment style places their entire meaning of life on this person or on this job, and tends to lose their identity as it becomes enmeshed into the relationship or this job that they have. It becomes their identity. And it's an unfair expectation to place on any person to live up to. And the anxiously attached person will often hide qualities of themselves to appear to have everything together, and often hide qualities that that they might think might push this person away. They struggle with showing their own identity. It all goes back to childhood and this fear of being abandoned, this fear of being not accepted and rejected. These anxiously attached individuals almost leave their bodies and tune into the needs of others and think, all right, well, if I can help this person get their needs and wants fulfilled, maybe they'll accept me. Maybe they'll validate me, and then that person can help me get my needs met. Because that's the dynamic they were used to growing up. They needed to fulfill other people's needs before they could get their own needs met. Maybe they knew that they would have to make their caretaker happy after they had a fight. Or if the person was an addict, maybe they needed to make sure they were on their best behavior to get their caretaker's attention. And when I was exploring the different types of traits of the anxiously attached, it really spoke deeply to me because I didn't do all the things I just mentioned, but some of them in my past, and it was really an eye-opening moment. I told the story in my last video of my ex-wife from years ago, in my video on abundant and scarcity mindsets, and I never took the time to heal from the trauma and the feelings of abandonment and loss, but instead I pushed them all down. I got really into weightlifting, I got into boxing, and I took all my anger out in the boxing ring. That's where I relieved my stress. But I walked around everywhere else, with a smile on my face. I didn't let anybody know I was having issues because, hey, guys are supposed to be strong, right? Right? They're not supposed to let anybody know when something is bothering them, or they will appear to be weak. That's the story I made up in my head, and the story I stuck to for a long time. And that's what a lot of guys do. So I put all that to the side, and when I stepped into the boxing ring, I took this smelling salt and I listened to Busta Rhymes, and I got fired up. That was my therapy. It was my chance to transform from this nice, easygoing guy that's always smiling and avoiding confrontation into this caged animal in the boxing ring, so I could finally release everything that was pent up without feeling weak. I felt like a completely different person. And it wasn't healthy because I didn't address the underlying root causes for my anger, right? So moving forward in my relationships with others after my marriage, since I hadn't gone to therapy and properly worked through the feelings of abandonment and anger and rejection, I carried those thoughts into all my future relationships. So I went for girls that I thought, quote unquote, needed to be fixed. And if I couldn't fix them, or if I could fix them, then they would need me. They couldn't leave. So I would be too valuable. So I put all my needs and wants on the back burner and prioritized my relationships over myself. And I now know that nobody's broken and needs to be fixed, and it's up to people themselves to work on themselves and be motivated to do it. It's not a friend or partner's responsibility to do it. That was my fear of abandonment talking, and it wasn't the truth. It was a story I made up because of my past traumas. And living for someone else is the last thing you want to do. It's the fastest way to lose yourself. Because once you lose that person, it may seem as if all your meaning is gone. So you have to live for yourself. You have to find a job or hobbies or relationships that are intrinsically meaningful to you. So you aren't depending on that one person, right? You're not depending on that one job for your happiness. And I don't mean to say you should be selfish and neglect others' wants and needs. No, if anything, taking care of yourself first will give you the energy to take care of others. So if you're depleted or you're unhappy, you'll burn out and you'll essentially be useless when it comes to helping others. Guys feel like they have to be this unmovable rock and nothing can get to them or they're weak, but it's simply not true, right? And we won't go into the details of the avoidant attachment style in the future. I think I want to do a video on that, but I also displayed avoidant traits as well in past relationships. And, that when I felt someone getting too close to me, I would make little comments to keep them at bay, like, well, are you sure you don't want to see other people? Or, you think somebody else might be more compatible for you? I did that with multiple people. Do you want to explore that? I'll help you set up your Bumble profile. Matter of fact, I have a single friend with Popeye tattoos all over his forearms. I'll hook you up. Yeah, those last two things I didn't do, but the first couple I did. But it was my fear of abandonment talking, and it became this self-fulfilling prophecy of, oh, well, see, that person left. I told you everyone would abandon me, even though I did everything in my power to push them away. Gotta be accountable. See, I was insecure in my relationships. Then it became even more ingrained into your brain. It becomes more ingrained into your brain that your relationships with people won't last. Whether it be a friend, a romantic partner, a boss, family member, colleague, anybody. And it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy until you put in the work to change your mindset. The same patterns are going to keep repeating themselves. So you have to find meaning in life that isn't dependent on others. You have to become intrinsically motivated, not extrinsically motivated based on getting validation from others. You have to get to the point where you can get validation from yourself. And believe it or not, doing these YouTube videos has been huge for me. I find these not only enjoyable, but therapeutic. And as an aspiring therapist and counselor, these videos are also helping me in my future, along with hopefully helping others that are watching. So you have to find something in life that aligns with your passions. Live in alignment with yourself. Find things that you enjoy doing, regardless of what other people think, right? You'll get that internal validation for yourself. But it took life experiences to make me notice that I had some things I needed to work through to be my best self. I have to work these issues out so they don't creep up in the future. Whereas if I would have done the self-work years ago, I'd be in a better place today to display more secure attachments. We'll do a video on secure attachment styles another time. I think they're really interesting. But I think my next video is going to be on anxiety and strategies that I've used to help my anxiety. And many have worked really well. So I look forward to putting that one out there. I think you guys are going to like it. There are many secure attachment qualities that I do have and that everybody has. So as I said before, nobody should be pigeonholed into one attachment style. But again, it's so common for guys to just stuff it all down. But I strongly suggest to anybody, women too, but especially guys, go to therapy, talk to friends, don't suppress it and stuff it down and transform into the Wolverine. So any sports fans or just fans of inspirational stories should check out the story on Brian Dawkins, arguably the best safety in the NFL history and my favorite athlete of all time. But he struggled with mental health issues. He struggled with depression. He had suicidal thoughts. And he opened up about it. And you can't argue about his toughness. Now he helps others dealing with the same issues simply by being open and upfront about it. Lead by example. He's a good role model, right? And it shows that even celebrities and people that we all look up to experience the same type of issues that we have. So they're people too. There's even an NFL Hall of Famer, Junior Seau, one of the greatest linebackers of all time. Good-looking family, tough as nails, always seemed happy. And he ended up committing suicide because of mental health issues that he didn't address. So there's this stigma that guys should be tough and work through it without help. But here you have two NFL legends where nobody would question their toughness that needed help. One got the help, one didn't. One is alive and helping others to cope with their mental issues and struggles, and the other isn't alive anymore. So anyway, just some food for thought. Back to the anxious attachment styles. So they put their own needs to the side, and they neglect other areas of their life, not just in relationships or friendships, but at work too. They tend to be overly concerned with their boss's state of mind, and they go out of their way to make their bosses happy and self-sacrifice their own needs and neglect other areas of their life. These people think they're being nice and helpful and indispensable, but this can cause people with those anxious attachments to become resentful. People with anxious attachments struggle to express their needs, right? Because remember, from childhood, they didn't have them acknowledged. They had them just shut down and ignored. And they struggle to have boundaries. A lot of people with anxious attachment styles tend to be people pleasers. And I'm guilty of that a lot of the time too. And I'm realizing that and working on ways to improve it. So setting boundaries would be a great idea for a future video as well. I read part of a book on it, but I had to give it back to the library. I couldn't renew it, so I couldn't finish it. But I got stuck on this novel by Shari LaPena. I got caught up in that. But anyway, besides the point. Anxiously attached people have a lot of trouble setting and sticking to boundaries with others, so they can easily be taken advantage of. Anxiously attached people have to work on learning to say no when they're feeling overworked and overwhelmed, both at home and at work. Well, everyone should, but now we're focusing on the anxiously attached individuals. So if you think you have a lot of anxious attachment qualities, it certainly helps to be aware of it first, work with a therapist, or read books to help turn those qualities into more secure ones. There's this one book, Set Boundaries, Find Peace, A Guide to Reclaiming Yourself by Nidra Glover Tawad. Sorry if I pronounced the name. But even if you aren't a big reader, as I mentioned earlier, Aaron Dowdy, a YouTuber and podcaster, has excellent content on setting boundaries and just general life strategies. He was once anxiously attached individual, so he's very relatable. He doesn't speak down to people, he speaks to you. So yeah, this video was a really fun one to do, and I look forward to putting out more. My interests these days are so wide-ranging in mental health and physical fitness, so I don't want to start definitively saying what my next video is going to be. But my goal for the next video is to put one out on anxiety, how it affects your life. And I have a lot of anxiety, so the topic is very interesting and personable to me. And I'll share strategies that I've used to defeat symptoms of anxiety. And notice I said symptoms, because anxiety is often just your brain's way of recounting experiences from your past and using them to, quote unquote, help you in the present, whereas it might not feel like they're helping you. But often anxiety is just the fear of being anxious and not the actual event itself that you're anxious about. So you have to try to focus on no more than the 7 seconds in front of you. The brain was not created to focus on anything later than 7 seconds in front of you. And live, I don't remember where I heard it from, but one great tip I heard was to live in the microseconds between the seconds. Focus on the microseconds between the seconds. But more on that in my next video. Many will be strategies that you may have never heard or tried before. So be sure to tune into my next video on anxiety. I guess I just committed to it, so that'll have to be the next one I do. If you like the content of this video, give it a like, leave a comment if you want to see more videos like this, and subscribe if you have not done so already so you can be notified when more videos like this one come out. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Peace out from Jeff's Dungeon /Den.